Act 3. Chapter 24. The Long Trip Home. Hungered inside the matte black 1984 Chevy pickup, Owen, a 50-year-old boat salesman with a scarred face and mouthful of broken teeth, watched the looters. Holding a monkey wrench, one of the 4 grimy men smashed the house's window. Gunshots popped inside. The looters lurched back and collapsed. The rest of the hooligans shouldered through the door. Another gunshot popped. A woman screamed. The door to the house hung open. Without power, darkness masked the struggles within. Owen's heart twisted in his chest. He turned the key in the ignition and quietly reversed deeper into the alley. Clouds rolled over the afternoon sun. The truck bumped over cracked concrete. Owen stayed behind the row of buildings. The alleys were tight, barely affording him enough room to open his door. He cruised through Homestead, attempting to stay out of sight and mind of the locals. There would be no help for him here. Only death. Years in the sun had tanned Owen's skin. His icy blue eyes were handsome and trusting. A trimmed gray beard painted the lower third of his scarred face. There was a bend on his nose from a recent break. During his last night in Miami, an arms dealer punched out multiple teeth and shattered others. Like a ravine on cracked earth, a scar ran from his lip down his chin, interrupting his beard. The damages were ever-present reminders of his past sins. Before the EMP, Owen was a god. He owned a multi-story mansion on the canal. His boat and cars were of the finest quality. He dated a beautiful woman, and he had enough money to start a 15-foot-tall bonfire. A single flash of light on the distant horizon stripped him of his divinity. Within a day, his lover, Maxine, learned about his illegal smuggling operations. The employer whom he betrayed beat him mercilessly, and a foreign nation's electromagnetic pulse bomb crippled the economy. All the long hours of work and shady backhand deals amounted to nothing. Since then, Maxine had grown distant, and much to Owen's shame, he barely knew his own son. His 23-year-old son sat in the front seat. Chase had the appearance of an Abercrombie model. Loose curls added volume to his rich dark hair. He had a distant expression. Owen parked outside a convenience store. He glanced in the rear view, looking at Maxine's 14-year-old son. Ike was a skater punk with black clothes and a good heart. He had thick brown hair and a thin mustache. "Watch the truck," Owen told him, and stepped out. Chase followed, holding an AK-12 assault rifle. It was the latest version of the Russian Army's classic rifle, the AK-47. The weapon was modified with an extended ammo magazine, an infrared scope, front grip, collapsible stock, and a dozen other features that made it easier to kill someone. Owen had pried it from the fingers of a dead insurgent back in Miami. They walked to the storefront. A thick chain looped through the door handles. Plywood boards stood behind the glass windows. Owen and Chase looped around the side of the building. Chase kept the weapon snug against his inner shoulder, the barrel pointed slightly down and his finger off the trigger. Someone had blasted away the back doorknob with a shotgun. Owen's shoulders sank. Chase pushed open the door. He used the thermoscope to guide him through the dark and dusty room. Wrinkled candy wrappers and busted chip bags littered the floor. The shelves were empty. The drink freezers had been cleaned out. A family of rats chewed on a packet of peanuts. They heard Chase's footsteps and scattered. Chase lowered the rifle. "Nothing here." Owen stood in the vacant aisles, the cogs in his mind turning. After a long moment, he said, "We'll call it for the day." "What about Francis?" Chase asked. "No one here is going to help him." The words were bitter in Owen's mouth. The vegan had vanished some days back. His blood-curdling screams had kept Owen awake all night. Whoever was torturing Francis wanted the rest of the group to hear. Though the southern glades were long and flat, they had a way of carrying sound across the boggy waters. Owen's stomach growled, reminding him of the depleted pantry. "We won't get food, either. Not if we want to get back before dark." They returned to the truck. Owen asked Ike, "Did you see anyone?" "Nah," Ike replied. He wore a sobering expression on his downcast face. Owen forced a smile. "Cheer up. We're heading home. Maxine and I will think of a plan when we get there." Ike nodded. He turned his tired gaze to the window. Owen drove around the outskirts of town. Chase turned the radio dial, but only got silence. The diesel truck survived the EMP blast simply because of its lack of electronic components. A few items that the insurgents tucked away in the Faraday cage survived too. That included the AK's thermal scope and a few flashlights. Owen hoped they'd find some food and supplies in the bunker below Jacob's house. With the homeowner nowhere to be found, Jack, one of the strangers living with them, had been trying to bust open the hatch for weeks. Maxine had managed daily rationing in the meantime. 7 people lived in the house: Owen, Ike, Chase, Maxine, Sarah, Lily, and Jack. There were 8 if you counted Francis, but his well-being was questionable. Ike's twin sister Sarah looked after Lily, Francis's companion. Lily was 8 months pregnant and having a mental breakdown since Francis got captured. If she weren't a vegan, she probably would have eaten through the rest of their food by herself. Leaving the town behind, Owen followed a farm-flanked road down to the southern glades. The storm had destroyed the crops and toppled the few houses dotting the path. Owen swerved around a few disabled vehicles. He spotted a man up ahead. Wearing drenched shorts and a green polo, Jack limped toward Owen. He lifted his eyes at the sound of the truck and waved him down. Owen stopped next to his roommate. Jack was slightly heavy-set and had thin, greasy hair. Swamp water and sweat trickled down his pug-like face and bushy mustache. He had a black eye, busted nose, and distraught expression. Owen rolled down the window. "What happened?" Jack pulled a runestone necklace out of his pocket. "It's Lily's. They didn't care that she was pregnant." "They?" Owen asked, doing his best to keep calm. "I don't know. There was like 10 of them," Jack explained, getting frustrated. "They showed up hours after you left. Once they saw that food stores were low and the bunker was sealed, they didn't see much use for us. I tried to warn the others, but it was too late. Lily was the first one they shot, then Maxine, and finally Sarah. I had to fight my way out. I'm sorry, man. I know Maxine was special to you." Owen cursed. He rubbed his hand over his mouth. "You better not be joking," Ike said. "I ain't." Jack showed off his bruises. "I didn't get out unscathed myself." "Against 10 armed men?" Ike mocked. "Bull. Ye don't know nothing, kid. It was a bloodbath. Jack exclaimed. "If it weren't for all the shooting and screaming, I would have never gotten out." Owen did his best to keep a level head. "We have to check for survivors." "You go there, and they'll kill you too," Jack warned. "We don't have much time. God knows how many followed me." The words silenced Owen. The gravity of the situation had yet to hit him. Maxine was the love of his life. Sarah was only 14. Lily was 8 months pregnant. What sort of monster would do that? Bile climbed in Owen's throat. He quickly swallowed it. The vile taste lingered. "We should check anyway, just in case," Chase said. Jack replied, "Don't be stupid. You heard Francis's screams. These guys enjoy killing. Our best bet is to get out of here before they show up." Ike said, "We can take them." "Yeah, right, kid," Jack said. He turned to Owen. "Max would want to keep Ike safe." "I know," Owen mumbled. "Then let me in," Jack said. "We can find a safe place north of here." "We can't just leave," Ike said. "Quiet." Owen shut him up. He asked Jack, "They're really gone? You swear you saw it?" "I wish I didn't," Jack replied. "If you're lying, Jack," Owen warned. "People are dead, dude. I wouldn't joke about this." He glanced over his shoulder. "Can we go already?" Owen thought about Ike. He needed to keep the boy safe. After surviving Miami, he had learned to be cautious. Going to check on the fresh corpses wouldn't revive them. If the attackers spotted them, Owen's small group didn't have enough firepower or training to stop them. Also, the truck painted a target on his head from anyone looking for a free ride. The longer he stayed in the valley of decision, the harder it would be for him to make a choice. He needed to commit. Stay or go. He gave Jack a long look, unsure if he should trust him. Breaking the tense silence, Owen said, "Get in." Jack quickly scooted into the truck's extended cab. He looked out the window as Owen turned the vehicle around. Ike scooted between the two front seats. Tears wetted his face. "Please, Owen. We have to try to see if they're alive. Mom would do the same. You know she would." Owen kept his eyes on the road ahead. "Keep him safe for Maxine's sake," he said internally, blocking out the boy's voice. Jack guided him around town, allowing Owen to avoid the riffraff. Eventually, he was on a back road, miles away from the swamp. The quiet drive was occasionally interrupted by Ike's sniffles. The boy tried to be strong, but couldn't hold it. The farther Owen got away from the town, the stronger regret pulled him back. In the business world, especially in dealing with smugglers, he learned to never trust his gut. That sort of intuition worked well in fantasy, but logic and calculation were the keys to survival and success. Passing through a wooded area, they slowed to a stop in front of a large barricade of crashed cars. Various vehicles had been pushed together and formed a wall across the road. Multiple plywood boards stood against the vehicles. The words, "Turn back," were spray-painted across them. Owen put the truck in reverse when he noticed someone in the rear view. The stranger wore a camouflage, a hockey mask, and held a semi-automatic shotgun. Owen's heart rate spiked. "Dad," Chase said. Owen turned to his son, and then to the half-dozen gun barrels protruding from the wall of the wreckage. More mask-wearing strangers watched them from the woods on both sides. They were surrounded. Chapter 25. Breach. Weeks later. At the heart of the underground bunker, Maxine Winters faced her ex-husband. Roy was different now. The jealous carpenter had rugged features and a shaved head. His beard had grown full and bushy like his brother's, but his eyes were still that recognizable hazel tint Maxine saw in their children. As if fate had twisted the knife in her belly, Maxine's twins, Ike and Sarah, looked more like their homicidal father than herself. Worse still, Ike and Sarah were gone, and now Roy, the convict, had returned to her life. Unaware of this fact, Roy wore an awkward smile and a jovial expression. He rested the shotgun on his shoulder. "Maxine, I didn't expect to see you here," Roy said. "You look good." Perhaps to a man stuffed in a cell for 7 years, sure. Over the last 2 days, Maxine had aged 20 years. Her unbrushed blonde hair rested in a loose ponytail. Stress left lines on her brow, the sides of her mouth, and the ends of her eyes. She used to pride herself on her good looks, but now she felt disgusting and weary. "Was Sarah up there?" Maxine asked, gesturing to the ladder rungs on the bunker's entrance. Furniture formed a barricade near the ladder. The twisted and jarred metal hatch rested at the foot of the entrance. The smoke and dust from the explosion dispersed around Roy. Roy's eyebrows drew together in concern. "She's not with you?" In vivid detail, the attack on Jacob's house replayed in Maxine's mind. "Max?" Roy asked. She snapped out of her haze, recalling the gunfire up above before Roy's sudden and unexpected arrival. She jabbed her finger at Roy. "Are you working for Granger? Did she set you up for this?" Confusion flashed over Roy. "Who? Are you talking about the people up top? You don't need to worry about them." Jacob stepped out of cover. Lily and Francis stayed hidden. "Jacob!" Roy smiled. He hugged his brother. "You're in good health. Oh, sorry about the hatch. We had some extra firepower." Jacob grunted, pulling away from him. "You should be in jail." Roy chuckled. "Yeah, long story. Right now my boys need rest. You don't mind if we have something to eat?" Jacob crossed his arms. "Who's with you?" Roy replied. "You'll meet them soon enough. We've been working together since the crash." "I'm not giving handouts," Jacob said. "I told them that. Those who don't work, don't eat," Roy clarified. "It's too dangerous out there to go alone, and I see you've already run into some trouble. The guys upstairs were the shoot first, ask questions later type. We scared them off, though I imagine they'll be back for some more punishment. Disturbingly enough, they strung up the dead bodies of their enemies across the swamp as some sort of warning. Real sick stuff." Rising out of cover, Lily and Francis downcast their gazes. Everyone but Roy knew that the bodies were Jacob's work. "Hey!" Roy directed his attention to Jacob and Max. "You said something about Sarah being topside? What about Ike?" "They're gone," Jacob said plainly. The words crushed Maxine's soul. Roy's jovialness faded. "What? What happened? Was it the bomb, or—" "Ike's been missing for weeks. I never got a chance to see him," Jacob replied. "Sarah never made it down here when those intruders you saw up top attacked." Roy turned to Maxine. the color quickly leaching from his skin. "Is this true?" Maxine frowned, feeling emotions swelling over her body. "Ike, yes. Sarah, she might still be here. I don't know." "Oh, Jesus," Roy said. It was more a prayer than a curse. Maxine chewed the inside of her cheek. Jacob slung his weapon over his shoulder. "You sure you've cleared out the upstairs?" Not waiting for an answer, Maxine climbed over the broken barricade and hurried up the ladder. It opened to a small closet that connected to a hallway. Sear marks blackened the floor around the hatch. Old blood stained the walls. Shell cases rolled around Maxine's feet. Watching her step, she bumped into something. She took a step back, realizing she was facing a man. He was over 6.5 feet tall, with biceps the size of her head, a broad chest, V-shaped torso, and dark skin. Like Roy, he had a shaved head and beard that had streaks of white like marble. He held a pistol. His hands were big enough that it made the gun look like a kid's toy. He loomed over Maxine, equal parts confused and alarmed. "Are you with Jacob?" he asked. Maxine took another step back. "Have you seen the girl? She's 14. Brown hair?" "None that young," the man said, lowering his pistol. "Is Roy okay?" Maxine nodded slowly. She turned around and headed to the kitchen. The man tilted his head as he watched her go. He began his descent into the bunker. The kitchen was the last place Maxine saw Sarah. The windows remained boarded, but the door had been bashed in. A tuft of long brown hair snagged on the splintered doorframe. Maxine brushed her fingers over it. It was Sarah's. The setting sun's golden rays caused Maxine to squint. Outside, a dwarf-like man with a long, wispy chin beard and gray ponytail grabbed the wrists of a dead man, while a young black male with a handsome face grabbed the corpse's legs. Like a kid caught with his hand in the candy jar, they turned to Maxine and froze. 2 more strangers laid more bodies across a tarp. One was a Native American man with a stoic face and shoulder-length hair. The other was a Caucasian male with large square glasses, pointed chin, and nicely trim haircut. The man-made forest fire had scorched the swamp trees and islands around Jacob's land. Even days later, small fires burned in many places. Scorched branches and soot drifted across the green water. Crackling woods had replaced the sounds of birds. All around, smoke lifted into the cloudless sky. Maxine spotted bodies and deflated rafts bobbing on the water. She walked by the strangers and toward the edge of the island. Smoky wind washed through her hair. Mud seeped in between her toes. Fallen trees and other natural debris in the water ensnared multiple bodies. From what little Maxine could discern, Sarah was not among them. Water lapped against Maxine's feet. A hand touched her shoulder. Maxine quickly twisted back, raising her fist. Roy stood behind her. "There's a survivor." "Sarah?" Roy replied. "One of them." Maxine followed Roy to the front yard. The rest of Roy's entourage stood around the stranger. Jacob joined them. The stranger's knees sank into the mud. Sweat stains formed around the neck and underarms of his dirty t-shirt. His shorts were wrinkled, and he wore flip-flops. He had a sunken face and long sideburns that touched his jawline. His big eyes silently pleaded for mercy. Most of his attention stayed fixed on Maxine, expecting the woman to be the voice of reason. Jacob kept his pistol by his side. "Please," the man begged. showing his yellow teeth. I just wanted food. Maxine's shadow fell over the man. Where's my daughter? The stranger turned to the others. Mercy! Mercy, please! Answer the question! Maxine's shout echoed through the swamp. The stranger flinched. They brought her back to Sergeant Granger. They thought the girl could be traded to you for food. We're so hungry. The man broke. We know you have it. I have 2 boys. All I'm asking is for you to give a little. I'll do anything. Anything. Roy squatted in front of the man. I believe he's telling the truth. Jacob glared at him with his apathetic moss-green eyes. Of course he is. He tried to kill us for my supplies. Granger promised food, the stranger said. I was just following orders. He looked to Maxine. You have a daughter. You would do anything to keep her safe. I know you would. Maxine was reminded of the countless sins she'd committed to protect her family. The man begged them. His sorry state of being was enough to break any of their hearts, if it weren't for the fact that he was shooting at Maxine and Jacob mere days ago. Roy asked, Will this Granger person hurt Sarah? I don't know, the man said quickly. But I could talk to her, though. If you're interested in a trade, she'll want that. We're all starving, you understand? Jacob interjected. You had all the food in the town of Homestead, and you wasted it. You show up here, playing the victims when it was you who spilled first blood. Jacob glanced out the burned landscape. He glared back at the stranger. No deals. Maxine whispered to Jacob, This is Sarah we're talking about. Roy said, I was given a second chance. This man deserves one too. Jacob replied, If we send him back, Granger will know everything. He's a liability. The towering black man said to Jacob, These people already destroyed your home, and you aren't willing to make peace. Jacob replied, This is my house. I decide what happens here. The black man sized him up. Roy stood. Cool it, both of you. Jacob, this is my buddy Abel. He's a good guy, okay? Jacob replied, He's a convict. He scanned the rest of Roy's entourage. You're all criminals. The nerdy one adjusted his glasses with his middle finger and extended a hand. Roger. Nice to meet you. Jacob turned back to the stranger. The nerdy one lowered his unshaken hand. I'm not killing this guy, Roy said to Jacob. You don't have to. Jacob lifted his pistol. Abel grabbed his arm and pulled back the weapon. Bam! The stranger ducked his head. The bullet shot off into the sky. Jacob knocked Abel across the jaw. Abel took the hit and shoved Jacob. He fell back into the muddy grass. Abel stood over him. From the ground, Jacob aimed the gun at him. The rest of the convicts turned their weapons on Jacob. It was 9 versus 1. Abel said, I'm a pretty merciful guy, but if you hit me again, you'll lose that hand. The stranger slowly scooted back. Maxine took a step toward him. Roy turned to his brother. Guys, come on. No one is shooting anyone. Jacob glared at his brother. Abel put up his hands and backed off. He nodded at the other men. They lowered their weapons. Your move, Abel said to Jacob. Veins bulging in his forehead, He lowered the pistol. Abel extended a hand. Jacob refused it and stood on his own. He scowled at Roy.
"I hope you know what you're doing."
With boxed shoulders, Jacob returned inside, leaving the stranger's fate in their hands. Chapter 26. The Mission. Facing toward Jacob's Island, the stranger paddled down the winding swamp. A tired expression held on his gaunt face. Maxine, Roy, and the rest of Roy's entourage watched him drift away on the raft. Hope flickered within Maxine. Roy took a deep breath.
"Sarah's gonna be okay."
"You don't know Granger," Maxine replied.
"I know a lot of criminals. She can't be that bad."
Maxine glanced at him, wearing a deadpan expression. "She locked me in the pound and stabbed a teenager in the hand because I wouldn't talk to her."
"Dang,"
said one of the criminals. Maxine returned to the house. Roy adjusted the shotgun strap, keeping it from falling off his shoulder.
"I'm starving. What time do you guys usually eat?"
Maxine kept her eyes forward and yelled, "Jacob decides."
"He's running a tight ship, huh?"
Roy asked. Maxine smirked. She rubbed her muddy feet on the welcome mat, followed the hallway, and returned to the bunker. On the couch, Lily rested her head on Francis's shoulder. She held his hand over her belly.
"Feel that?"
she asked.
"Not really,"
Francis answered. Lily moved his hand to a different place on her belly.
"How about now?"
Francis's eyes widened.
"Is that?"
"His little foot,"
Lily said proudly.
"It's kind of freaky,"
Francis said.
"You better get used to it,"
Lily replied. Francis smiled nervously. Maxine sank to the recliner. The fluffy cushion absorbed her. She didn't want to get up again. The couple stared at her. Lily asked,
"How is it up there?"
Maxine shrugged. "Roy brought some of his buddies. I don't know them well enough to trust them. I can tell Jacob is going to have a problem with them." Lily chewed her lip. Francis looked over the couch to make sure no one was coming from the ladder. He turned to Maxine and spoke quietly.
"Are we still planning on the thing?"
"Leaving?" Maxine answered. Francis freaked.
"Don't say it so loud."
Maxine looked at him apathetically. "My daughter is captive, and my ex-husband is back. I have a feeling I'm here for the long run."
"Oh,"
Lily said disappointedly. Francis asked,
"What now, then?"
"You do whatever you want to do," Maxine said. "Jacob doesn't want all these extra guests. If you ask for a boat, he'll probably let you go." Lily kept both hands on her belly.
"He's coming soon. I can feel it,"
Francis replied.
"He's been close for a long time. I'm sure we can last a few more—"
"Francis!"
Lily cut him off. Francis's body slumped.
"You want to stay?"
"Want? No. But I want to make sure the delivery goes smoothly."
"Whatever happened to doing this naturally?"
Francis asked. Lily replied,
"It's still natural, but just less risky."
Lily turned to Maxine.
"You think your ex-husband will be able to keep Jacob at bay?"
"Only time will tell," Maxine replied. Determination filled Lily's cute face.
"We wait, then."
Francis slumped. Maxine's body told her to nap. She forced herself to her feet instead. After getting slip-on shoes from her room, she went topside. The convicts hustled through the house, picking up furniture and scrap wood. Maxine watched the 9 strangers shouting orders to one another as they quickly cleaned.
"Doors and windows, brothers,"
Abel shouted. The burly man carried a detached bedroom door to replace the back door. The nerdy convict quickly set the hinges. Maxine approached. "What can I do to help?" Roger smiled at the sight of her.
"Just jump right in, sweetheart."
Abel held the door in place. It left half of an inch gap between the floor and bottom of the door. Abel grunted. "Set it anyway," Maxine said. "We'll find something to seal the gap." Maxine hammered in the door hinge pins. They cut foam from a pipe in the laundry room and slid under the door to fill the gap. She walked through the house, moving furniture, repairing window barricades, and cleaning the floor. She got to know Roy's people a lot more. Abel was Roy's right-hand man. The 2 men never argued, and only worked to build off of one another. Though Maxine didn't pry into Abel's past, he seemed like a man with strong convictions. He told Maxine that he lived by 2 commands: love God, love his neighbor. According to Roy, the 2 of them were chained ankle to ankle when the EMP exploded. When you're that close to someone, you either learn to like them or want to do everything to avoid them. Abel wore a t-shirt with a cut-down neck and shorts that hovered just above his knees. His leg rippled with muscle. His large hands could crush Maxine's head. Balled into fists, they were the size of small turkeys. Roger, 35 years old, was the 2nd inmate Maxine met. Despite his bookish appearance, the white-collar criminal was surprisingly fit. He was open about his various white-collar crimes. As Maxine worked alongside him, Roger taught her 3 quick ways to launder money and get away with it. Seeing that he was a convicted criminal, Maxine had a hard time trusting his foolproof escape methods. Apart from his surprising well-kept Ivy League haircut and intense magnifying glasses lenses, he wore a sweat-stained button-up, cargo pants, and tennis shoes. His gun holster was strapped to his ribs like an FBI agent. Working nearby was a Native American convict named Alberto. He had an intimidating stoic face and would glance at Maxine often. His dark eyes revealed nothing behind his intent. He wore a muscle shirt and khaki shorts. A holstered machete hung on his back. He didn't speak the whole time they worked. On the other side of the room, Pretty Boy nailed boards to the windows. The house became darker with each plank. He had an annoyed scowl on his soft, well-manicured face. Only 21 years old, he was the youngest of the bunch. His dark skin was as black as night. He had an excellent hair fade and was heralded by Abel as the group's barber. He stubbed his thumb while hammering a nail. Maxine escorted him to the restroom. While she fished out Band-Aids, Pretty Boy admired himself in the mirror. He wore a baggy jersey and sagging shorts. Lance, 56 years old, was a short and stubby dwarf-like man. His wispy beard flowed down to his chest and tied into a man bun. A sour stench followed him like a cloud. He worked hard and complained because no one worked as hard as him. He spent most of the time building a pyre for the bodies. With a little axe in hand, he chopped down branches and weaved them together to form the pyre's base. Carl helped him. Carl was a tall, lengthy black man in his mid-20s. His skinny arms hung at the side of his beanstalk torso. He had a nappy head of hair. While Lance laid out the pyre, Carl chopped down most of the branches. Lance told Maxine that Carl was a professional pickpocket and to keep an eye on him. The last 3 convicts were Mickey, pikemen, and Jessup. 62 years old, Mickey was a lifelong jailbird. He was of Italian descent and had slicked-back hair. He wore a T-shirt and smoked like a steam train. Pikeman was a tattooed Latina gangster who spoke very little English. Jessup, in his 40s, was an average-looking African-American man everyone seemed to avoid. He mumbled to himself and stared off into nowhere. They helped clean up the floors and furniture. Night fell upon the swamp, and the work was left unfinished. Jessup and pikemen volunteered for the first watch and would eat leftovers. Roy and Abel offered to take the second watch. Until it was their time, they joined everyone else in the bunker. Jacob added extensions to the table. All 12 of them packed together. Wall-mounted lanterns produced an incandescent glow. A cluster of candles stood at the center of the table. Tears of wax trickled down their sticks and puddled around their base. Jacob sat at one head of the table. Abel sat at the other. Talking all at once, the convicts passed around various bowls of cooked canned green beans, powdered mashed potatoes, and squirrel meat stew. Roger looked up at the bunker's curved ceiling and then to 50 years' worth of supplies.
"You really got something special here."
Jacob eyed him suspiciously. He returned to eating.
"Pretty dope place," Pretty Boy said. "You got plumbing?"
"The outhouse,"
Jacob said.
"Next to all the dead people?" "Hell no,"
Pretty Boy replied. Jacob replied,
"The bunker is for family only."
Pretty Boy looked at Lily.
"You making her sleep up top?"
"Are you pregnant?"
Jacob asked.
"Of course not,"
Pretty Boy replied.
"Then stop complaining."
Pretty Boy leaned back in his seat and crossed his arms. Roy wiped his mouth with a napkin.
"Thank you for having us, Jacob."
A few of the other convicts mumbled their gratitude. Jacob kept eating. Roy and Maxine traded looks. She shrugged. The meal consumed any chance of a conversation. The moment they finished eating, Jacob immediately tasked them to clean up. A few of the convicts asked to tour the bunker. Jacob forbade them and told them to work out sleeping arrangements upstairs. Maxine pulled Roy aside after the others had gone up the ladder. "There are a few extra beds in my room if you're looking for a place to crash." Roy smiled sincerely.
"I'm okay."
"You sure?" Roy looked at the living room.
"I'll sleep out here."
They stood quietly for an awkward moment. Maxine said, "I'm sorry about Sarah and Ike." Roy replied,
"Stuff happens. We'll get her back. I promise you that."
Granger might not be interested in a trade deal, at least one that won't favor us.
"What do you suggest?"
Roy asked. "When it was just Jacob and me, we couldn't stand against Granger. We didn't have the numbers or weapons. However, showing up at her front door with 9 scary men just might put the fear of God in her."
"It's not fair to them to risk their lives for my daughter," Roy said. "Most of them may not ever see their families again."
Maxine put her hand on his arm. "You've just brought them to the honeypot of supplies. Helping us out is the least they can do to repay you."
"I'll think about it,"
Roy said, gently backing away from her touch. Maxine returned her hand to herself. Jacob's voice sounded behind her.
"Are you talking about Granger?"
Maxine turned back. Jacob lingered at the entrance to the hallway. Roy replied,
"Yeah, we'll probably have to wait until she comes with trade terms."
"Looking for the best in people will get you killed,"
Jacob said.
"Yes, because letting my temper run wild really turned out well last time," Roy replied sarcastically.
Jacob said, "This is war. If you want to get Sarah back, you need to pressure Granger. Right now, she has more people, more information, and a strong motive to kill us all. We have food and water that I'm not giving up."
"Not even for Sarah?" Roy asked.
Jacob replied, "If we whet their appetite, they'll keep coming back."
Roy argued, "Then we can set up a barter system between both sides."
"No. They'll just make another attack, and Granger will keep hurling bodies at this place until she gets what she wants, which is everything I have,"
Jacob answered. Maxine cut into the conversation. "Before we do anything, let's pay Granger a visit. If there's any way to get Sarah back without making a deal, we take it."
Jacob said, "Hit them hard, and hit them fast. The moment they can't leverage Sarah is the moment they'll either have to kill us all or back off."
"And what are the chances of that?" Roy asked.
"It depends on how bad you hurt them,"
Jacob answered. "You're not going to come with us?" Maxine asked.
Jacob shook his head. "As long as these criminals are around, I'm staying back."
Roy's anger flared.
"We've all done questionable things. These are good guys, and you're not going to build any bridges without showing them a little bit of respect."
"I don't trust them, and you shouldn't either,"
Jacob said fearlessly. Roy sighed. He pinched the bridge of his nose for a long moment. He finally asked Maxine,
"When were you thinking about going?"
Maxine felt a righteous fury rise up inside. "Another second of our daughter being in the hands of that monster is too long. I say we go at daybreak." Roy paced. He finally said,
"Okay. I'll talk to the guys."
"Thank you, Roy," Maxine said.
"Don't mention it,"
he replied, and headed for the ladder. Jacob lingered in the hallway. Maxine looked at him, thinking he would say something. He turned his back to her and vanished down one of the connecting corridors. A pit formed in Maxine's stomach. His trust for her ended the moment she tried to seduce him. It was to escape, not out of lust or love. Things had changed, and she wasn't sure how to mend the relationship with Jacob. Maxine took a long shower that night. She heard footsteps on the floor above. Roy's entourage was busy. After drying off, Maxine returned to her room. Lily and Francis sat up together, flipping through one of Jacob's many survival guides. Maxine wished them good night and sat on her bed. Lily winced.
"What's up?"
Francis asked, concerned.
"Just a cramp,"
Lily replied, and adjusted her posture. Her pregnant belly was almost comically large for her small body. At just a little over 5 feet tall, Lily was overtly skinny and lived by a strict vegan diet. Maxine worried for Lily's health, but kept her concerns to herself. She didn't want to spread any more fear around their little home. The next morning, Roy rallied up his people. He and Abel were just coming off the night shift, but refused to waste any more daylight hours. Roger asked,
"You sure you're good, man?"
Roy replied,
"Yeah, I'm straight."
His tone had a bit of an edge to it. Maxine clipped a pistol to her waist. "Who is staying and who is going?" Roy answered,
"Mickey and Alberto are staying back. The rest of us are ready to go."
Jacob nodded. He turned to Mickey and Alberto.
You'll keep lookout. If you see anyone, you report to me.
Whatever you say, boss,
Mickey replied. Alberto nodded in agreement. Before heading out, Francis rushed to Maxine. He took her aside and spoke in an anxious whisper.
Lily's having cramps again.
Maxine returned to the hatch. She found Lily on her bed, weeping and holding her stomach. Not much fun, huh? Maxine asked, trying to lighten the mood. Lily shook her weary head.
I threw up this morning.
I'm sorry, Maxine said, and offered her hand. Let's get you to the infirmary, just to be safe. Sniffling, Lily let Maxine guide her. Lily said,
I have a feeling that he is coming soon. I don't know if I can do this.
We all feel that way, Maxine replied. The moment you see that child's face, it'll be worth it. Trust me. Maxine led her down off the connecting corridors. They opened the door to the infirmary. Jacob had all the tools Maxine could ever need. A sealed case of pharmaceuticals stood nearby. Some of the drugs were off the market. Maxine wondered what connections Jacob had to purchase them. Lily rested on the slightly angled bed. The room had a tile floor and cool industrial color palette, almost like they were in a morgue instead of a hospital. Maxine said, You rest. I'll check on you when we come back. Lily held Maxine's hand.
Thank you for everything you've done for us.
I've not done anything, Maxine replied. Francis pulled up a chair beside Lily. He turned to Maxine.
What do I do if it happens before you get back?
Get Jacob's help and trust your instincts, Maxine replied. By Francis's worried expression, Maxine could tell that was not the answer he wanted to hear.
Maxine!
Roy yelled down the hallway. Filled with a sense of urgency, Maxine told the couple,
I'll see you soon.
Good luck,
Lily said. Maxine hurried down the hall. Francis stood by Lily. Nervous, he swallowed a large glob of spit. Feeling the late fall breeze brushing against them, the convicts removed inflated rafts and canoes from the garage. Maxine helped Abel carry one to shore. He gestured to the array of scorched trees around them.
Roy had a suspicion that the swamp would be flooded, so we got these rafts just in case. When we arrived, everything was on fire. I was half tempted to turn back, but felt in my spirit to press on. Roy felt the same.
Maxine smiled at him. You're not one of those Bible thumpers, are you? Showing his pearly white teeth, Abel answered proudly,
I am. Roy got in with the Lord. We're brothers now.
Maxine lowered the canoe to the water. If it makes you happy.
Sometimes it doesn't,
Abel replied honestly.
But that's just what the walk is. I don't always get it, and I've made my fair share of mistakes along the way. But it's worth it. To me, at least.
Maxine climbed into the canoe. The boat teetered on the shallow water. Was jail rough?
It was hell.
Abel pushed off the boat.
The boredom was the worst part.
He waded shin-deep into the muck before climbing into the raft.
Every day was meaningless, and I had 15 years left on my sentence. That's when I knew something had to change.
Maxine helped row. Roy and the other convicts moved across the water like scattered ducks. Maxine asked,
What are you in for?
Never ask an inmate that. That's the golden rule,
Abel replied. Maxine replied, If you're a serial pedophile rapist, I think it's my right to know. Abel's eyes widened.
Roy never said you were this feisty.
Roy didn't have to escape Miami with terrorists and arms dealers at his heels. Long story. Abel rode by one of the snagged corpses. Purple spots covered the dead man's bloated body. A bird had plucked out one of his eyes. Abel frowned.
I killed someone.
Ah, Maxine replied. When you're in the moment, it's
easy,
Abel answered shamefully. Maxine nodded. The swamp was silent. The fire had scattered most of the wildlife. If I'm not prying too much already, can I ask who it was? Maxine asked. Abel's eyes glassed over. It seemed like he had slipped behind a mask.
My wife. I hit her once, and I just couldn't stop. I tried to justify it for a long time, reminded myself of her infidelity, but that didn't change my actions. Only God could set me free of that torment, but I still have to wear shackles in this world.
What about the others? Maxine asked quietly. What sort of crimes did they commit? Abel eyed her.
That's not my place to share.
Maxine smirked. Are you afraid I'll contact the authorities?
They're entitled to their privacy.
Maxine passed under a burnt tree branch. I shot a man in the head. Another in the chest twice. Both of these were after the EMP. I wasn't counting how many I hit when they were swarming the house. Visions of the killings appeared in front of her eyes. Abel kept silent. Maxine blinked, trying to get the images out of her head. Her attempts failed. The same numb feeling she felt then returned to her now. Abel opened his mouth, but no words came out. Maxine locked eyes with him. No secrets, Abel. Abel glanced over at the nearby rafts.
Roger was in for fraud and tax evasion. Pretty boy botched a convenience store stick-up, and the cashier ended up dead.
The handsome boy and the nerd navigated around an underwater tree. Abel glanced at Pikeman, the tattooed Latino.
He was in for gang-related activity.
He shared a boat with Carl, the tall and lengthy black man. Maxine noticed him sneaking a bite from one of Jacob's multigrain bars.
Pickpocketing,
Abel confirmed. The ominous, quiet Jessup and dwarf-like Lance shared a raft. Abel gestured to Lance.
Aggravated assault. And no one knows a thing about Jessup.
What about Mickey and Alberto? Maxine asked.
Mickey's been in the pen for the longest, and has claimed innocence the whole way through. I believe he's in for murder, but it could be murder-rape. I don't know, and I don't like making such accusations. Alberto is in for grand theft auto, but he pissed off the wrong cop and got overloaded with a dozen other charges.
Abel gave Maxine a serious look.
If you confront any of these men about the things I said, I will deny it all.
Glad to know where you stand, Maxine replied.
Just being honest. After spending a month with these men, They're like brothers to me.
Maxine asked. You never mentioned Roy.
You should know all about him.
Does he still have a short temper? Abel frowned.
You want to see how Roy changed. You talk to him yourself.
Rowing solo, Roy was the first to reach the swamp's edge. Like little islands, parts of the dirt road protruded from the water. It won't be long before the entire road is usable again, Maxine remarked. When she first arrived outside of Jacob's house, the entire road was submerged by the hurricane's flooding. Despite the inconvenience of boating to and fro Jacob's house, the water added an extra layer of protection. In a few days, that would no longer be the case. Maxine stepped out into the mud. Her slip-on shoes left tracks as she helped Abel bring the canoe to shore. The rest of the inmates placed them into the forested area. Unlike most of the swamp, this area was untouched by the fire. Dozens of footprints imprinted across the trail. They followed the dirt road to the main street, a 2-lane that shot straight into Homestead. Along the way, Roger and Pretty Boy joked about finding women there. Roger said that he particularly liked the redhead that was strung up in the swamp.
But considerably less dead, he made sure to clarify. Like your nerdy white butt is gonna get any poon, Pretty Boy joked. You're nothing but skin and bones.
Roger pulled up his shirt, revealing his abs.
What do you think I was doing while in the big house?
A few others chuckled. Lance walked with a slight limp. He kept a stubby shotgun strapped across his broad back. He glanced up at Carl, who was eating another protein bar.
Man, you are stupid.
Carl looked down at him.
What?
Lance tried to take the bar.
Give it here.
Carl held it over his head. Lance's stubby arms weren't even close to reaching it. After a few failed attempts, he begrudgingly gave up. Carl finished off a bar and gave a wrapped one to Lance. Lance whispered to him,
They'll shoot you if you get caught stealing.
Carl shrugged nonchalantly. Lance took a bite from the bar. Jessup lingered in the back, mumbling to himself. Maxine kept an eye on him. Pikeman walked on par with Roy, who led. Maxine caught up with him. How did you guys get here without going into town? Maxine asked. Roy replied, We learned real quick that locals don't like our breed. We traveled at night mostly, and stuck to the outskirts. It takes longer, but it's worth the risk. You want to tell me what happened to Ike? Maxine's chest tightened. He, went on a supply run with friends of mine. They never came back? Roy absorbed the information, his expression becoming hard. I missed the times when they visited me. With school and my work, life got ahead of us, Maxine replied. How is Sarah? Roy asked. Maxine tucked some hair behind her ear. She walked with her eyes down. Before this whole fiasco, she was good. She was a 9th grade honor student, part of the yearbook club and soccer team. She helped facilitate a few study programs, too. Roy smiled. That's amazing. Yeah, she is. Roy asked, Does she ever, talk about me? Maxine replied, She is usually pretty open about her feelings. Ike is a different story. I don't know what's going through his mind, and he won't let me in. What sort of stuff does Sarah say? Roy asked. She asks how you are and when we can see you again, Maxine admitted. Ike doesn't really say much of anything. Makes sense, Roy replied, trying to make it seem like the information didn't affect him. They arrived outside of Homestead a few hours later and divided into 2 teams. Alpha Team consisted of Maxine, Roy, Abel, and Roger. Beta consisted of Pretty Boy, Pikeman, Lance, Carl, and Jessup. The town was quiet. A raindrop busted on Maxine's forehead. She glanced up to the gray skies. A moment later, the sun shower began. The 2 teams moved into the busted door of a looted house. Maxine looked at the 2 teams. Surveillance is our only goal right now. Once we have an idea of Granger's army, we'll be able to move in. Roy said, "The moment we get Sarah, we're out." Pretty Boy asked, "And what do we get from this?" Maxine replied, "You all pull your weight, and I'll make sure you stay on Jacob's good side. That means more food and weapons. Maybe even a hot shower." Sound like a plan? The men agreed. Moving back out into the rain, the teams split up. They stuck to alleys and moved through looted buildings, keeping within earshot of each other. Sergeant Granger had turned the town into a hellhole. Every door was kicked in, and every window was busted. Cars had smashed windows. The occasionally stripped dead body rotted on the sidewalk. Maxine's group took cover inside of a restaurant and eyed the dog pound from a broken window. The concrete building looked like it could survive a missile attack. Multiple dog cages stood in the overgrown grass outside. Wearing ponchos or holding umbrellas, dozens of men and women entered and exited the pound. Their skin was sunken and starved. They pushed tarp-covered wheelbarrows in and out of the pound. The wind nearly blew off one of the tarps, revealing dozens of firearms hidden below. Maxine's heart rate quickened. "They're preparing for war," she mumbled. She kept an eye out for Sarah. Abel and Roger moved to another window. After observing the traffic for a while, Maxine's group snuck out of the restaurant and moved around the other side of the pound. They took cover in the rubble of a crumbled building that had collapsed during the hurricane. The ceiling had fallen in, but the building provided the best vantage point of the pound. A light rain pattered them. Maxine's teeth chattered. Through a window on the side of the pound, she spotted Sarah tied to a chair. Sergeant Granger and a few of her lackeys stood around her. Granger, a bulky woman with a ponytail, slightly lopsided face, and hard expression, yelled at Sarah. The window muted the sound. Tears streaked Sarah's cheek. Granger slapped Sarah. Sarah's head lurched to the side, revealing bruising all across her skin. Granger hit her again, this time harder. Maxine's heart broke. Despite having a weapon, she felt defenseless and defeated. Roy boiled as he watched. His body trembled in rage. Abel put his hand on Roy's shoulder.
"We're just here to scout, brother. Be patient, and we'll be able to get her."
Granger leaned in close to Sarah. Sarah tried to pull herself as far away as she could from the intimidating cop. Granger pulled out a knife. Sarah squirmed. Granger grabbed the side of Sarah's beautiful hair, yanked it, and sheared it right off the scalp. Sarah screamed as a large ribbon of gorgeous hair fell to the ground. Blood trickled down the side of her head. Granger brought the knife to her eye. Roy cursed. He quickly aimed his shotgun and cocked it.
"Roy,"
Abel warned,
"you need to chill." Boom!
The shotgun slug blasted a hole through the window. One of Granger's lackeys stepped up just in time to accidentally take the bullet for her. Roy cocked the shotgun. Granger quickly dropped to the floor, hiding from the bullets. Her people rushed to cover. Sarah's scream echoed out through the busted window. Like a stirred hornet's nest, everyone in and around the pound went on high alert. They tossed aside whatever they were doing and pulled out their weapons. Abel's eyes went wide.
"What are you thinking?"
One of the Granger's people outside spotted them.
"There! In there!"
Abel fired a few warning shots the person's way. The stranger dashed for cover. Roy fired another blast into the pound's window. Another one of Granger's lackeys dropped dead. Gunfire erupted from multiple sources around the pound. Maxine ducked. Bullets hit the walls around her. Dusty chunks of wood and brick hit her in the shoulder.
"Fall back,"
Abel shouted. Granger's people scattered. Some of them retreated outright. Others found advantageous cover behind various vehicles, waist-high brick walls, and beside buildings. They opened fire. Lost in his rage, Roy looked for an opening in the chaos. The instant the gunfire wasn't directly aimed at him, he vaulted through the broken window and ran. Bullets zipped around him. He slid on his knees, taking cover behind a large van. Staying partly hunched, he leaned around the back of the van and shot a man.
"He's heading directly to her,"
Roger exclaimed. He backed away from the firefight.
"He's as good as dead. We've got to go while we still have a chance."
Making a split-second decision, Maxine rushed out of the building and ran toward Roy. Bullets whizzed by her head. She fired a few blind shots toward her enemies and came to a harsh stop at the side of the van. Catching her breath, she wiped the rain from her eyes. Roy fed shotgun slugs into his weapon. His hand trembled. He dropped a slug. He pulled out another and used that one instead. Maxine crouched next to him. "We've got to go back, Roy." Roy leaned out from behind the truck and shot a person aiming at him. He quickly returned to the cover. Maxine turned his face to her. "Listen to me." More gunfire erupted farther away.
"That's Beta's team,"
Roy said, ignoring everything she said.
"This is our chance."
"Roy, please. You'll get us all killed," Maxine pleaded. Using Beta Team's diversion to his advantage, Roy dashed to a nearby car. Granger's people shouted commands at one another, organizing themselves behind better cover and laying down heavy, suppressing fire. It only took a quick glance for Maxine to see that her side was outnumbered 5-1. At the eastern side of the pound, Beta Team moved in. Carl, the tall pickpocket, stuck his body out of cover and spotted Maxine. A look of confusion and fear overtook his expression. Suddenly, multiple bullets peppered his torso. Lance, the stocky, dwarf-like convict, grabbed Carl from under the armpits and dragged him back. Bullets zipped around him. Just when he was safe, a bullet hit him in the head. Maxine saw the glint of a sniper scope on the pound's roof. A tarp covered the shooter, keeping him from the rain. Kneeling, Maxine shot 4 bullets at the sniper. The first 3 missed. The last one got him. He slumped over. Blood trickled down the side of the building. The rain quickly washed it away. Roy ran to another vehicle. His next stop would be the window. 3 of Granger's men moved out to flank him. Maxine shot at them, hitting one in the leg. The last one dragged himself to cover. Maxine switched out her ammo magazine. She tried her best to stay calm, but her heart raced. Pikeman from Beta Team dropped dead. Pretty Boy and Jessup retreated, cursing as they ran. Abel and Roger maintained their cover fire from the broken building, but Granger's forces still greatly outmatched them. Maxine felt a panic attack coming. She practiced her breathing. The rain worsened. Water trickled down her face and dripped into her mouth. She dashed toward Roy. The 2 hunkered behind a car. A bullet hit one of the tires.
It lowered the vehicle with a soft hiss. "She's right there!" Roy shouted. Maxine peeked around the back bumper. She spotted Sarah struggling to break out of her binds. Granger had evacuated the room. One of her lackeys was still inside, shooting Abel's way. Maxine twisted back. She spotted a few of Granger's men and women flanking around the sides of the street. Without Beta Team to back her up, they were going to be swarmed within the next 2 minutes.